Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Lara Buelow. And, we have a lot of commonality. Her husband's a medical doctor as well. So, we bonded through that. And she's going to talk all about career transitions, incorporating personal values into professional life, entrepreneurship, balance, and fulfillment. And I'm really happy to have her on the show. So, Laura, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, Chris.
Yeah. Start off, introduce yourself, what you do, how you got started, and we'll dive right into the conversation.
Okay, perfect. I'm definitely gonna fumble my way through this because my kids just had COVID for the last 2 weeks. I'm fried from having them around so much. So my name's Lara Buelow. Hi, great to be here. I love podcasts. I love listening to them. I love being on them. I dream about starting my own. But currently I run my career transition coaching business, and I am certified in the Designing Your Life content out of Stanford University, as well as the Sparketype content coming from the Good Life Project and Jonathan Fields. So those are the things those are extra tools that I just really nerd out on and include in my coaching. And I'm just really passionate. I'm also an artist. So I've done lots of painting. I studied painting in college. I paint murals, and I'm really passionate about the arts. So I like to smash all of those things together. And I really drank the love what you do Kool-Aid. And I've just done so many different things in my own life that I attract other creative souls who, are done masquerading in the corporate world and are ready to pursue a career path with more purpose, passion, impact, values alignment, and balance in a
Mm,
nutshell.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And what's interesting is for example, my wife, she's kind of the more stable, like she's W-2 and I'm more of the entrepreneurial. So I love how you and your husband have done that, and he's building the stability, and you're going out and on the risk curve and helping others. So that's what a lot of dual couples do. And so, one thing that's questioning is especially for a lot of the younger generation, they I describe them as they get it. When I talk to kind of my parents' age, and very respectfully, they don't get it. So the younger generation, they understand that portfolio career. So talk about asking what's next for your career.
Yeah, so a big thing that I'm talking about right now is that I just published my book, Mostly Unanswerable Questions. And obviously a huge category in that book is the career section, right? Because that's also my expertise as far as building more of this portfolio around your career, right? And I think people are really scared about making a leap and demanding to have more value aligned work, right? But that's what it's going to take. I always have a conversation at some point in a client's journey about how no one is coming to save you, no one is going to give this to you. You have to demand it, right? And I bet you do a lot of coaching with folks in your own business around this of look at the doctors, look at the medical system in America. They will work you to the bone, right? Like my husband, one day he will make a lot of money, but in the residency program, they get paid less than minimum wage per hour that they're working. So to
Yeah.
tie this back to the portfolio career, what's next? I really support folks in answering the big life questions. Let's really think about what you're going to regret in 5 to 10 years if you don't start taking value aligned action today, right? And what kind of jobs do you need to set yourself up for in order to build the life that you actually want? The one that's actually going to allow you to take a vacation, spend time with your kids, build your own business, et cetera, et cetera.
And I love that. I love how you said that nobody is coming to save you. And it's imperative. Like I tell the younger generation, school is not going to teach you financial literacy. You have to go to YouTube, you have to go to podcasts, you have to go to Barnes and Noble if it still exists. You have to go to library, get these books, read it. You got to understand it, digest it. You got to do the work. You got to talk to people. You got to get mentors and coaches, because school will not prepare you to be rich. They're just preparing you for, uh, you know, for lack of a better word, is preparing you to be poor. So, and you got to learn the things you want to learn. You got to have to learn it on your own because school is just kind of general purpose. So, and yeah, I love that this idea, we can't depend on Social Security. We cannot depend on pensions or 401ks or any sort of job. These are not stable anymore. So you have to kind of learn how to create your prosperity. So I love that.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
nobody's coming to save you. So, um,
Well, and you just mentioned so many things that I have like really strong feelings about, and that again, like I include a lot of these things in my book, right? Like, what they're preparing you for is like to be poor to support capitalism, right? So, I mean, there's just so many things in the world, like, and I'm so sad about the whole education system, like not preparing you for real life, right? Like, teach me something, like, teach me how to be an adult. So, a lot of these things around, like, well, we have to demand it. Like the people have to demand financial literacy and like the safeguards to like not run us all into the ground, right? So that's another big piece of it. Is like what kind of work do you have to do in order for us all to like be the rising tide, so to speak.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And so kind of shifting the energy of the conversation, talk about this so a lot of times, we had to separate our personal and professional, but now a lot of people are incorporating their personal values. I give the example of like the younger generation. I always talk about this. They will work for a company that they really believe in for less versus a company that drains their soul and is like, pro war and bad for the environment. They won't work for these people. They will pay 3x more for a brand that resonates with their values as opposed to, other less value-based brands. So talk about incorporating your personal values into professional lives and boundaries.
Yeah, the first thing that's actually coming to mind for me is that when, again, like the fear when people make a transition, right? And how we all have like, we're all programmed to have really high loss aversion. And so you have to really connect to your values in order to make a meaningful transition. And that when people are out there like doing career transitions and that sort of thing, like you're interviewing them too, right? Like if you want to make a bigger impact, if you really want to work for like a particular type of company, you're not going to know immediately what their culture is unless you're really doing your homework and interviewing them at the same time, right?
Yeah.
You need to do that behind the scenes work to really show up fully informed,
Mhm.
and become, in the career transition world, like become part of that brand.
Yeah.
So can you actually state the question again? Because I think it's a really good one and I feel like I'm not answering it.
Yeah, and I love that, and kind of to add on to what you were saying is like, for example, I have an example is like, I have a good friend, he's an influencer, and he was talking about this where professional life, like he had to ask to go to the bathroom, had that, he had like 30-minute lunch breaks, and it's just ridiculous, he asked for time off, and he's just like, one day he's just like, instead of waiting for the company to fire you, why don't you just fire yourself, right? You walk off the job, it doesn't resonate with you, don't take that job, you can do a lot of personal development. And so a lot of people are incorporating personal values, like for example, female empowerment, Black Lives Matter, just kind of more, diversity, equity, inclusion, saying, more towards mental health. So talk about like these things and saying no and creating boundaries.
I mean, and like to me, that's like voting. It's voting with your voice, it's voting with your actions, it's voting with your money, right? Like it's going to take all kinds. You don't, it's like a lot of the times I think that the internet has kind of brainwashed us to be like, you have to have a job that you love to change the world. Not true, right? You have to be an entrepreneur to change the world. Also not true, right? Like just being whoever you are, doing exactly like the same job, living your life, there's small things you can do right now to be more values aligned. This is perfect. It's Earth Day, right? We're recording this on April 22nd. Like exactly everything that you're saying. People should think about like where are their clothes coming from? Where's their food coming from? Like what are the values that you care about, and what's one small action that you can take to embody that? That's another big piece of my work is like we all have these like, it's like a company's mission statement. Does it mean anything? Does it lead to better decision making, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about what are people's personal values and then turn them into an actionable valuable value that you can live every day, right? Whether that's like your diet, where you shop, the types of brands that you're shopping from, right? Like if you don't want to support genocide overseas, then like look at where your money is invested and that kind of stuff. So there's so many different ways, and it's really like important to incorporate all the different levels of like the underground activism that's going to be required to change the world.
Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting is this concept of challenges of re-entering the workforce. And a lot of people are scared to make the leap because they have to explain gaps. And just like for example, I have a colleague, she left a very toxic work environment, and this created this idea of like you have to have like kind of job lined up, really created a lot of anxiety, and so she was desperate for the next job and still you know and not work on herself and still create those uh patterns that are just very unhealthy. And so versus somebody, for example, my other colleague I just referenced, he was like, yeah, I'm going to quit this job that doesn't resonate with my values. I'm going to work on myself, figure out who I am, come back stronger. If that's a month, if that's 2 months, if it's a year, I can work on a business, I can start a business. So talk about this thing where like people are just desperate for the next thing and just repeat the same unhealthy patterns over and over.
I mean, I really hear that a lot, like especially with new parents. Like I feel like it's a very common theme, especially for moms. I work a lot with like new moms. I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old or 3-year-old. And so I get it. And but I also think that it's just a very common experience, right? Because people, like you said, there's no true security, right? And
Yeah.
like all the like inflation, prices on things are rising. So, I mean, I always like to remind people that you get to be the narrator of your own story, right? And in order to help people build the confidence around telling a different story than the one that they're feeling in that moment of like, oh my God, I have this gap, and how will I ever re-enter the workforce? I don't even know where to start. I'm so lost. This is horrible, right? Is like to go find other people who have done it,
Yeah.
because we can't just be told we're not alone. We have to experience that as well, right? To like see and speak to other people who are like, I did that, right? Like I took the time away. I made it back into the workforce, right?
Yeah.
I did it deliberately to come back stronger. And it does make you stronger in so many ways because you have to do that roller coaster of the ups and downs and the redefining of like who you are and what you bring to the table. I also think it just makes people more interesting.
Yeah.
I'm like, and people who have gone through hard things that it builds character and resilience, and we need to support each other through that. So like one of my favorite career transition tools that people should be using throughout their entire career, like just lives in general, is like informational interviewing and just like being with your network, right? And having interesting conversations. I know every doctor has interesting stories to tell. So I always tell people, I'm like, go find the people who are in your network and ask them for their career transition stories, right? Like your friend's story you just shared, like so fascinating that he was like, I'm just going to walk off the job and like however long it takes, I'm going to come back stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I just love the like kind of inspirational comeback story that kind of like being mistreated and then come back and doing something great. And so the other thing is because you teach a lot of people want to share their story, influence, and one of that is through writing and publish a book. And you're about to launch a new book that combines what we're talking about. And talk about what advice you would give to others who dream of writing their own book or other ways of sharing their story, getting it out there.
Yeah, I would say that actually my answer is like exactly the thing that I was just talking about. Is like go find people who write blogs, essays, stories, articles, books. There is nothing more powerful than having a community of people around you who are working on a similar thing or have done it before. So that's like my first piece. And the other one that's maybe even more important than the first one is just start, right? Like starting any new scary project is incredibly difficult. And then for the creative people who are like me, I don't have so much of a problem starting. I have a problem finishing. So it would be like just start and then don't stop.
Yeah.
Any level of consistency that you can bring to the table, whether that's 2 minutes or 4 hours, you know, keep infusing your project with like daily commitment. So that's a really, really big piece. I know there's so many people out there who are dreaming of writing a book, which was also my dream for a long time. And now I'm like almost at the finish line. Yeah. So I would tell people like get support and start writing.
Yeah. And we'll give links to the audience when you're to the book. Sure it's gonna be released on Amazon and your website and how to get that.
Yes.
Kind of concluding thoughts is, life is, I heard this great quote is, life is all about quality of life. Like money is just a resource, and here we use it as a status symbol and a way to as a way to manipulate, or but you can also do a lot of good with it. So talking about balancing your personal and professional duties, and how have you done that, with your husband, with your family, with your clients, just finding fulfillment and happiness.
I'm really privileged and very, very lucky to have an incredibly supportive family on both sides, right? Like my family is really supportive. My husband's family is very supportive. And so they've really allowed us to build the lives that we are building right now. So
Yeah.
that's super helpful. And when we move back to live closer to them, they will be even more supportive, which will be great. But how do I balance it? I mean, especially being on the medical path with someone, I think presents a lot of unique challenges. I am someone who desperately would love to have like a more equal, equitable relationship as far as household duties, but
Yeah.
I also didn't want to wait until my 40s to have kids. So, you know, I don't necessarily love the word compromise, but you got to give and take where there is giving and taking to be done. So a lot of it, I think, is about thinking about what your values are and like where your non-negotiables are and thinking about what you really want in life. I also think that using regret as like, well, what am I going to regret 5, 10 years from now? How does that determine my decisions today? But it's hard. It's super hard. I'm like so curious about how you and your wife navigated
Yeah.
that because it's challenging. It's really hard to find that balance
Yeah.
in partnership.
Yeah. It's there was a great quote by, I think it was Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and he was talking about this idea because this pain of failure and the pain of regret. And when he was wait because he worked for like a this big hedge fund, and this is right when the internet was exploding, and he was like, yeah, I got to do this. And he was just like, his decision, the way he makes decisions is very fascinating, because he's like, what would I, you know he's all of this like cost, like what are irreversible decisions and what are reversible decisions, and which ones can I make very quickly and not have like severe impact that will make the greatest progress. And he was like saying that the pain of regret is greater than the pain of failure. So if
Mm,
and Ken Griffith, one of the best hedge funds of Citadel, he's like, when you're young, you got to take risks, because when you're older, you have obligations, you don't have as much time, you can't afford to risk as much. So when you're
yes.
young, take risk, because the worst thing you can do is just fail, but you have time ahead of you. So how can
Yeah.
people?
Well, that's actually making me think about how, like, also, are you familiar with the Gottmans in the Love Lab in Seattle?
No, but feel free to
Yeah.
elaborate.
I mean, they're really fascinating and they've written like tons of books on relationships and like, are like the celebrities of long lasting. Like they can like tell if they watch you and your partner fight for like within 30 seconds, they can tell with like 95% accuracy if you'll still be together in 10 years or something.
Mm,
So anyways, it was just making me think about like as far as building happiness and balance, the advice that I would actually very specifically give to women is focus on your social network, because apparently, according to the Gottmans, these relationship experts, a woman's longevity, like health and longevity, is actually determined by the quality of her like social network. So that's not as true for men. It's not untrue, but it is not quite as true as it is for women. So I would say like get out there, make sure you have like a handful of good friends. You know, we all need at least one good friend. And also remember to focus on your relationships, because all of the longest standing research reports on like the quality of human life is around relationships, not on money. So, and I've totally heard that that quote about the take risks when you're young. I mean, and like now that I've got kids, it like weighs it really, I feel that one deeply. Yeah,
Yeah.
so many adventures to be lived, right? Like there's so many choices you could make in life. So
Yeah.
take advantage of them.
And how can people contact you and follow you and check out your book and reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I always like forget to plug those things along the way. My website is larabuelow.com. I'm on Instagram at Lara Buelow. And through my website, you can get onto my book launch team. I do have those links everywhere. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. The book is called Mostly Unanswerable Questions and will hopefully be on sale in 2024 before.
Awesome.
So coming very soon. And yeah, it'll be great to release that. So thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to include those in the links in the show notes, and give Laura a like and follow on our socials and check out her coaching programs and services. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Chris. This was